This story that I will talk about today is from an old coworker of mine that I worked with about a year and a half ago. I was a little inspired from my earlier video, so I was like, all right, I think this story would be very fitting. When I worked at this one place, we would cycle through temp workers like crazy every season, and I got to meet some very interesting characters. For example, there was this one dude who was from Louisiana who had scars all over his face, tats on his face, there was even a scar on his throat because he got his throat cut in a fight. My man served about 7 years in prison, but I tell you what, he was one of the coolest people I've ever met. Granted, the dude was a little odd because unfortunately, what tends to happen with people who get sent to prison is that they start to grow different traits in that environment that may be abnormal in a normal environment, like outside of prison. Then there was this one kid that was higher than high when he would show up to work. I first thought the dude was just tired, but no, bro was zooted beyond belief. And honestly, you could just tell because whenever you talk to him, bro would look at you like you're speaking fucking Mandarin to him. However, for this story, we had this one dude we hired who was, I think he was mid 40s, and he usually just kept to himself, which was kind of usual of our temps. They didn't really like want to make conversation with people, they were more so there for work. He was this 5'9", frail Hispanic dude with a very strong accent, as he had said he was from Chihuahua, Mexico. One day we were working in the back where a lot of other temps were at, and I would usually go back there to shoot the shit with them and, talk. I didn't really fuck with like the full time workers. The temps were usually cool. The full time people were kind of like sticks up their ass type people. We were talking about all sorts of things, basically going over different things he experienced when living in Mexico. He said he lived on a small ranch outside one of the cities. He then abruptly stopped when he was talking about all that stuff, as he was about to talk about coming to the United States. And he said this. There was this one time when I was about 14 years old where I had this experience that I feel like I don't talk about enough. Mostly because people think I'm crazy for it. Now, having grown up around my brother who was balls deep into some weird sci-fi shit, I thought my experience when it comes to the word crazy was a little different. I tend to view things in a scientific light rather than a spiritual or mystical one. So I'm usually wary of anything that comes my way that has little to no explanation to it. Because I feel like just because we don't know why or how shouldn't immediately mean that the answer is one that isn't possibly based in reality. Honestly, I hope what I said just made sense because I don't know. My brain's it makes sense in my brain. Well, I was intrigued to not tell a story because people think you are crazy for it. At this point in time, I was hoping he wouldn't say some weird shit like how he murdered someone and buried their body or, whatever. Because at this job, we had box cutters. So, yeah, I was hoping homie wouldn't stab me or something. I responded with, I'm all ears, bro. Tell me. He was definitely hesitant because after I said that, he took a longer pause for about 10 seconds, probably to gather himself. Then his response was straight up, I was abducted by aliens. I kind of froze with what I was doing. I was like, oh fuck, not this weird hippie shit. This is the same stuff my brother would fucking say. I was like, all right, go on. And so he explained the story in detail. I'll be paraphrasing the story, but I have the basic parts of the story ingrained in my brain. His story went like this. Oh, and also to mention, I will say it from his perspective because I hate saying he said over and over again. One night when I was around 14, my mom wanted me to come inside after playing with the kids from outside. It was probably dawn rather than dark outside. So like not nighttime, I'm assuming. I went to my room and I was finishing some schoolwork that I had put off until the end of the day, but I was making sure it was done before I went to school the next day. I finished my homework pretty fast and my family was basically all asleep, except for my father. He would usually take off his boots and relax in the front and essentially take a load off, drink some beers, whatever. After I finished, I went to head outside to my dad. I sat down next to him as we were back and forth talking. We were interrupted by these lights that were hovering above us. Now, around this time, it's almost completely dark, but there is still enough light outside to see where you're going. Plus, we had one light out in the front, so we still kind of had the lights on. We stared at the sky for a while because we thought maybe it was stars, planes, something, but they were just staying there in one spot, so we just thought they were stars. We didn't think too much of it. There were about 5 lights in a triangular position. I'm listening to all this and I'm of course interested, but I'm also trying to do my job and I'm like, this dude probably saw some weird shit on Ancient Aliens and was inspired to tell me a fucking lie. But of course I continue to listen because I'm at work, I have nothing else to do, and this dude's talking about being abducted by aliens. Or I don't know that yet, but I'm like, okay, this guy is going to be talking about some crazy shit. Anyways, he went on to say, Next thing we knew, because we were staring the entire time, the 4 lights disappeared, vanished in an instant, and there was only one left. The lights were around the same height where planes would fly, so we still didn't think it was crazy, but my dad was like, what the fuck? Around this time, one of my dogs came outside for some reason, maybe by chance, but he stood there. Nothing weird about him standing there, but it was me, my dad, the dog, and the strange light that's in the sky. Still looking up, we see the light zoom down almost instantly to maybe 100 feet above the house, and we saw this object, and what happened next was the weirdest thing. It felt like whatever this was, it understood us. It felt like it knew what we were thinking. I say we because my dad was like, why do I feel like this thing understands what I'm thinking? Well, a few seconds after it was hovering above my house, there was this flash or something, like a flashbang, and then after that, I don't remember a thing. To this day, I still try my hardest to remember because I feel like there's some memory in my brain about what happened, but it was like I drank and I blacked out. The same exact feeling. I stood there absolutely flabbergasted. This man just gave me a much more detailed explanation of being abducted than my weird ass brother has ever given. So I guess because this guy seemed a little bit more reasonable, as though he had more validity in his story than my brother's. And you know what, guys? Something I found interesting is this reoccurring thing of them reading your mind and knowing what you're thinking sort of vibe. I've heard that in almost every abduction story possible. This story wasn't quite done here because I asked, so what happened to your dad? What happened to your dog? He said they don't know what happened to their dog at all. That maybe he ran away or something. He got scared. He jokingly said that the aliens probably ate him. Which I was like, damn, imagine aliens invaded the planet because they were in love with eating dogs. Like the taste of dogs was like the best Gordon Ramsay have-an-ass meal. He basically said that his father had the same exact story as him, and they both said something to their family about it, whom were all basically sleeping and stayed asleep. They just thought they were fucking with them. Now, something that stuck with me personally was how he said that his dad had a very bad back from falling off a horse like years before. And he said after he was abducted, the pain went away, as if whatever happened that night healed him. I was like, bro, what? Motherfucking Jesus aliens abducted y'all? Low key, my lower back has been stiff for a while, so I was like, okay, maybe if I got abducted, I'd be cool with that. I was so awestruck by this dude's story, totally encapsulated. And I told him he should tell the story more. He said he didn't care too much to tell the story now because it was so long ago and there's not much proof of it. But the family didn't believe their father when he said that his back was completely healed. Because again, he joked that they basically made him the meal when they crossed over to the United States. Yeah, so there's that story. Probably one of the most interesting things anyone has talked about to me. He seemed believable. Yeah, so I was doing my own little research on stuff like this, and oddly enough, as I said before, a lot of people have had this like same type of story. I think that's about it for this story. Never saw this guy again after they let the temps go. And hopefully the aliens aren't fucking with him anymore. I hope this story was somewhat interesting to you guys. That's all. Arrivederci.